Today's Christmas reading comes from the book A Smoky Mountain Boyhood, written by Jim Cassada. If you're interested in the book, I'll leave the link in the description below. Momma and the Spirit of Christmas. If the spirit of Christmas embraces things such as love of family, togetherness, warm feelings, goodness, excitement, and faith, then Momma was the quintessence of that spirit. Many adjectives seem appropriate when describing her love of life in general, as well as the Yuletide season in particular, but to me, none is more fitting than the word merry. She always had a sparkle in her eyes, breathless excitement for even the most ordinary of undertakings, and a constant joie de vivre. She was merriment personified. Born in Clay County, she spent much of her youth far from her highland homeland. Her mother died when she was just beyond infancy, and her father apparently decided it would be best if relatives raised Momma. Her adoptive parents moved frequently, and it was always my impression that the resulting instability affected her a great deal. Certainly, once she was back in the Smokies, she never wanted to leave, and I heard her comment to that effect on many occasions. There's no place like these mountains. Although she never said much about it, and certainly the care and development she lavished on her adoptive parents in their later years would have led one to think otherwise, clearly warmth and love were scarce commodities in her childhood. Likewise, she never had much in the way of Christmas gifts as a youngster. This was evident in two ways: the frequency with which she mentioned an elderly man who had befriended her and given her a quilt at a point when her adoptive family was living in California, and the pure delight Momma took in everything associated with Christmas right up until her death. She loved the rituals of preparing for the season, especially decorating with materials from nature. Gifted with considerable crafting skills, at one time or another during her adulthood, she made Cherokee-style baskets, knitted, crocheted, enjoyed macrame and applique, grew and rooted all sorts of indoor plants, prepared lovely flower arrangements, was a superb seamstress, and had a real knack for decorating. Never was the latter ability on fuller display than at Christmas. It might also be noted that Momma was exceptionally frugal, a combined product of upbringing and necessity, and all these hobbies saved money. Momma was always involved in anything and everything connected to Christmas at Bryson City Presbyterian Church, filling pokes with stuff for young kids, working behind the scenes in connection with pageants, and volunteering in any way she could. Similarly, some of my earliest Christmas memories revolve around charitable endeavors in which she would do her part and then some to make sure there was some joy in the season for those who were less fortunate. Later on, although anything but a political creature, she didn't have much truck with food stamps and government support, but like many hard-working mountain folks, Momma believed in helping those who were down and out. She always worked with her children to craft handmade Yuletide gifts for their teachers, rightly feeling that the personal effort had more meaning. Then there was Christmas-related cooking, and as an endlessly hungry boy who still holds his own as a trencherman, that was of immense importance to me. Momma was a splendid cook, and one of our family's real losses was her compulsion, when Parkinson's disease afflicted her late in life, to throw away a great many things. Among the items lost to that well-intentioned but misguided mania to organize were hundreds of discarded recipes. Fortunately, though, she had already passed many of her favorite recipes on to my wife and other family members. Among those that survived were chestnut and cornbread dressing, orange slice cake, applesauce and black walnut cake, pumpkin chiffon pie, her special approach to preparing squirrel, crackling cornbread, Russian tea, popcorn balls made with molasses, fried pies, stack cake, handed down from Grandma Minnie, and candy. However, if I had to pick out one dish in which her culinary skills shone brightest, it would not necessarily be associated with Yuletide. She could fry chicken better than anyone I've ever known, and that included Grandma Minnie, who was an absolute wizard in the kitchen. I know how Momma did it. Each piece was dipped in egg and well coated with flour, then slow fried, followed by a session of sitting in a cast iron skillet in an oven on low heat. This was standard dinner fare on Sunday, and by the time we got home from church, that big skillet full of chicken would have achieved crunchy, moist, and tender perfection. All of our children know the process and remember it well, but duplicating the end product to a degree that matched her fried chicken has always eluded us. Mama took quiet pride in her cooking skills, and she loved to see her family and friends eat. Throughout my boyhood, she truly fed the multitudes in terms of setting the table for our friends. We never had a lot of money, but you could rest assured the Casada table was set with a precious plenty. There was never any issue with an extra plate or two. It's a testament to Mama's generosity and hospitable nature that my friends ate with us far more than I ever ate with their families. We were at times almost a communal kitchen for neighborhood kids. Speaking of kids, no starry-eyed youngster, no Christmas will never come mindset, or the firmest believers in Santa Claus has ever derived more sheer joy from receiving gifts than Mama. As much as she gave of herself, and she was tireless, totally unselfish in that regard, she loved to open presents. Curious as a cat or eager young child, for days before December 25th finally arrived, she would pick up gifts bearing her name from under the tree, heft and maybe shake them a bit, and wonder out loud, now what that could be. Similarly, I can hear her decades later saying with a mixture of disbelief and excitement when handed a gift, "Another one for me?" She was careful in opening presents because, after all, wrapping and ribbons could be recycled in the waste not, want not approach to everything, which was her mantra. Still, it was easy to tell she would have loved to rip the paper asunder like a youngster. Year after year, once all the presents had been opened, she would offer thoughts to the effect of, "I can't believe how lucky I am. I'm so thankful, and this has to be the best Christmas ever." She may not have had much of anything that was the best as a child, but far from looking back with regret or bitterness, she brought an attitude of optimism, excitement, and simple goodness to the season of Christmas. She enjoyed a good joke. There were always gag gifts in our family, and at times Mama would laugh until tears rolled when Daddy received something such as underwear adorned with images of Mickey Mouse or a Sammy Davis Jr. audio tape. Daddy absolutely detested the popular singer. Her laughter was infectious, and even though she was the butt of jokes more than a fair share of the time, it never troubled her. A classic case came when on the Christmas late in Mama's life, when my brother and sister-in-law gave her a box of dried beans labeled Hillbilly Bubble Bath. As was her wont, Mama had shaken the nicely wrapped package a number of times prior to Christmas Day. The beans rattled around quite noisily, but she couldn't for the life of her come up with a thought as to what the decorative wrapping might hide. Such was her intense curiosity that she gently implored, "Can I open this box first?" When she did, and the gag gift was exposed for all to see, there was a moment when, as her family convulsed in laughter, she didn't realize just what had happened. When the piece of mischief did dawn on Mama, her response was, "Oh, shoot." That was about as close to an oath as she ever came. As a clan, Cassidas have never been exactly gifted when it comes to diplomacy. Almost all of us are wont to speak our piece in decidedly direct fashion, and if Mama hadn't been a moderating influence, goodness knows where her offspring might be. Daddy could be highly opinionated, and his father, Grandpa Joe, was the essence of mountain stubborn and quiet. Mama, on the other hand, always seemed to have just the right thought, action, or word when a soothing, smoothing touch was needed. She possessed a seemingly endless supply of dimes when a child did some extra work around the house, was always a soft touch when it came to providing a snack or special dish, and was game to try almost anything one of her children asked her to do. But of all the countless times she offered just the right gesture, a few words of praise, or maybe a little pat on the shoulder, the moment I remember most came at holiday time when the whole family was seated at the table. My younger brother Don was probably 16 or 17 years of age, and all of us, including my wife of only a year or two, sat down to one of Mama's meals. Midway through the feast, and from totally out of the blue, Don suddenly brought up a most unexpected subject. "I've come to a conclusion," he pronounced. "I was born by accident." It was undeniably true, since he came along a half generation after my sister and me, but no one had ever so much as dared hint at the matter. Silence reigned supreme for a seeming eternity in what has to rank as the finest example of a pregnant pause I have ever experienced. Then Mama offered the perfect response, "Yes, but you were the most wonderful accident I could ever imagine." That way of thinking was at the core of Mama's being. She was completely unselfish, genuinely moved anytime something was done for her, loving in the sort of fashion that grows in meaning over time and given reflection and the embodiment of everything associated with the true spirit of Christmas. No one loved the season more or brought more to it in terms of warmth and a giving heart. I was blessed by having her make Christmas truly special for me for almost 6 decades, and maybe offering some index to her innate sense of understanding what was meaningful to her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and daughters-in-law forms a fitting way to conclude this rather lengthy excursion into Yuletides of yesteryear. Many Christmases after her death we enjoyed a cake, most likely one from a recipe she provided, atop a Fostoria stand she gave to Anne, my wife. Also, at some point during the season, I make a point of rereading some book she gave me, indicating her recognition of a budding bibliophile. She chose my first book, Zane Grey's Spirit of the Border, when I was 9 years old. It still holds a place of pride on my bookshelves. My daughter will wear jewelry Mama passed down. My sister will recall them wrapping gifts together or sewing something for some family members. And I know my brother and his wife think of her every year when they fashion a cross using materials from the wilds of the Smokies. It is a practice of reverence and respect for the bounty of the land Mama would have adored. Most of all, though, and it often happens at the oddest of moments and for reasons that transcend my ability to explain, I'll think of her. Doing so will bring temporary sadness, but it will soon give way to gladness and a smile. That's the way she would have wanted it, because Anna Lou Moore Cassida was a woman and a mother who walked life's path as the shining embodiment of the spirit of Christmas.